yours. Lord, we pray today for that same divine wisdom and discernment on this board of mayor and commissioners as we strive to make the right decisions for all our people, regardless of race, creed, or social status. We pray for peace and unity and understanding in our city in the days ahead. Today we ask that you bless and favor our city manager, our staff and employees, and most of all our citizens. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a motion to receive and file the call letter for this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to receive and file the minutes of our regular meeting held on May 27th, 2020, our special called meeting held on May 28th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearings and reports. Commissioners, anything?
Just a brief comment, Mayor. I'd like to make mention we had a peaceful march last Sunday, and I would like to applaud our participants who marched peacefully, our Ashland Police Department that was out in force, and our Ashland Fire Department and our Streets Department. I was in attendance with yourself and Commissioner Perkins, and I thought it went off very peaceful. It's a show of unity, and I applaud our city. Secondly, in responding and our safe reopening of our city building and our parks, our hospital with the elective procedures, and retail business. I understand we had a prayer vigil after the march, and in front of New Hope Baptist, and I understand there's a planning of another meeting coming up on the 27th. I have no reason to believe that will also be a show of unity and understanding in our city. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else?
I do. I've got a few things to
Sure.
say. At first, I'm glad to be back in here today. I'm glad to be back in the
Feel
chambers.
more like a commissioner here.
Yeah, I
don't you?
do. I'll feel a lot more like a commissioner when we have other bodies in here, and I understand why we can't. But I'm looking forward to that. And just a brief statement. It's been a difficult week for us, but I will echo Commissioner Goot's comments in that we need to look to unity at this point. We have to come together as a community. Divisive and insensitive language on any of our parts don't serve the central mission of creating a prosperous and inclusive Ashland. I think if we succeed in our plans in revitalizing the city, we're going to see people of all colors, races, nationalities, religion in our city, and we need to be welcoming to all those people, not just the ones who look like us and act like us and think like us. I was reminded this week of a trusted mentor who said that each of us has an obligation as a fellow human being to be very aware of how we treat one another. Specifically, we must be aware of how we treat someone that may look different, speak different, be from another part of the world, or have different experiences than us. The ability to facilitate change begins in me, and it begins in you. We must make a commitment to be positive, to positive change in our workplaces, in our homes, and in our communities. I know we're making this commitment as a commission. I look forward to our eliminating racial inequalities discussion when we're able to gather the public to do that. I think an open and honest dialogue is really the only way to move forward. Finally, just a quote from Maya Angelou, who is misquoted or quoted depending on which source you look at. You do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, you do better. And now we know better, and I suspect we will do much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let me say again, as has been mentioned, I'm very proud of Chief Kelly and his police department. I've heard many comments about how we've conducted the marches, and I know that city manager and myself and the chief, we attended a meeting last night of the group that are putting together the June 27th function, and it's basically our younger people, and it's they're very organized and wanting to do the right thing, and their march is basically a march for change. And, you know, a lot of information will be coming out on that, and the city's going to be involved. They want us involved. It's not our march, but we'll ensure that it's a safe march, and they're going to ensure it's a peaceful march. And the change being, you know, making more things available, and making all of our people understand that they become more participatory, then things get more equal. And you know, there's going to be quite a push to push registration, voting registration, which we all hope and pray happens in every community. But the tenor and the attitude of those that mixed group that's putting this together is very enheartening for us. I think it's going to be a good event that entire day. You know, I would like to say, and appreciate your comments, Commissioner Clark, that, you know, equality of races, equality of religions, equality in your neighborhood, whatever. I try to say so many times that you basically are who you are. You can give big speeches. It's who you are and how you walk, and you reflect whether you have a racial bone in your body or not. And I'm proud of my community. I think that the vast majority are very supportive of equality. I've been here longer than any of you in this room. Maybe Council Martin's probably been on the earth a little longer. No, he hasn't. We have quite an argument about who's been here the longest, but I've been here a long time, and I'm very proud of Ashland, and the people are for the right things, and you can always do better. And having been an educator my whole life, and have watched the deterioration of the nuclear family and the strong bond of a dad and a mom and the kids that instilled in their kids that, like my mom always did and my dad always told me, that we're no better than anyone else and no one's better than us, and treat people like we want to be treated. We're missing that a whole lot through the early childhood years, and we certainly then miss it as kids enter school. We have so many latchkey kids. You know, they go home to empty house. And as I used to tell some of my staff, some of those kids, I'm glad they go home to an empty house. It's better than what they would normally face on an everyday. There are a lot of homes that we don't think enough about, that many of those people, they weren't trained or brought up about equality of race, religion, color, who you are. And it's very difficult when cultures of kids are coming up through the school system and are not going home to get training and direction of how they should live their life and how they should live their life with others. So, I mean, I could go on about that, but I just want to say that in your heart of hearts, if you don't believe that we're all equal, it's going to be very difficult for a march, or for me as the mayor or the chief of police or anybody else to change attitudes and how people feel about other people. And so the change I hope these young people are working on is if we just snag a few people each time there's an event, that, you know what, I haven't been looking at this right. I'm the odd man out. And but you have to feel in your heart that we're all equal, and then that's the first step. Then you can accept, and that's no matter what color you are, what creed is, or anything. You know, on both sides and all the sides, people have to feel that equality, and all of us are sworn to do everything we can in our community to make it a better place to live, a safer place, and that's for everybody in our community. And I know that the people I'm serving with stand on that, and which makes me even more proud to work with them and my city staff. Okay, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. While Mark's coming up, I did want to echo a couple of things just that have already been hit. But the reopening of the city building on the 1st of June, it is a partial reopening. We believe we're in line with everything that's come out from both the CDC and also the governor. We have a phase 2 that we're continuing to work roughly for the 1st of July that will open things up a little bit more across the city. In regards to the protests and support, again, echoing APD, AFE streets, everybody who attended, it was just a very positive, in my humble opinion, display of First Amendment rights and what that can look like in our country and done peacefully and safely. And so thanks to the team that participated in that. Budget work continues. There's been, I can't count the number of iterations that have been going on with the budget. The discussions that we've had, we're on the precipice of getting that finalized. I appreciate everything from the elected officials, mayor, and the commissioners, and also the staff. Tony, Michelle, their staff have worked tirelessly in some insanely long hours to get that to a place. And again, everybody knows the historic challenges that we've had with this budget. We have been short-staffed with a lot of layoffs, and there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of heavy lifting. I can't name everybody by name, but I wanted to thank all them for all the work that they've done and will continue to do. And with that, the beat has gone on. So we've continued to do things that we've had to do. Some things are visible to our community, other things are not visible to our community. Mark is very briefly going to hit 2 things that have continued on recently that I'd like to share with you that we're all very proud of. Mark. Okay. Mr. Hall, excuse me.
If I can get this to come on. Sorry, I'm trying to follow the directions and they don't seem to be coming on. Okay, well we'll talk about. I wish I could show you the slides because they're very interesting. But a couple of things I want to talk about, Mayor and Commissioners. Like the city manager said, we have even during this process or during this pandemic and the other things that have been going on, we continue to work here at the city of Ashland, still continue to get jobs completed. And a couple that I want to talk about today was the intake structures at the river. As you can see there, that's a intake screen that's being installed. But this screen here is important for screening out some of the larger materials and debris that can access the intake structure. And that's important to protect the equipment, specifically the intake pumps that are housed in that intake structure. The intake pumps themselves are what delivers the water to the treatment plant. Also, these screens would provide some, in the event that some of this stuff could get pumped through the intake pumps, it could cause even damage to equipment downstream. So what I wanted to say about this, if you go back, can you go back to that previous one? That shows the intake screens, the trash screens installed. And one of the other things that is important about this job is we needed to install these intake structures before we went in to physically clean the intakes out, or the intake structures out from the debris and the material that builds up in there. So we entered into an agreement to have these intake structures cleaned twice a year for the next couple of years. And what we found out is that doing it that way, like breaking it up into two cleanings, is a lot more efficient than trying to remove it all at once. It seems to work a lot better. But
When were those installed?
just recently here, within a couple of weeks.
And we never had them on before?
Well, they were there at one time, and I think that just these structures were built somewhere around the 1950. So just wear and tear and needing to be replaced, needing TLC.
Mayor, the perimeter on these had the wrought iron looking rods that were in there. And like Mr. Hall said, since the 50s, those have been destroyed. In the last couple of years, you all will remember that we have had things that have gotten into that area and have torn up those pumps, and we've had to replace those pumps. We are looking long-term. We're going to do some engineering on this, but this is an immediate quick fix to
Yeah.
keep that stuff from going in there. But originally constructed, 50 years ago plus, it worked, but these are more effective than what we could do for a longer-term cost.
Can you take me to the next slide? I'm not being able to control it here. As you see this picture of this rope here, it doesn't seem to be anything that significant, but the reason that's on here is immediately after installing these trash screens, those screens stopped that rope from being sucked, that was caught on the outside of the screen, so it stopped that rope
Yeah.
from accessing the structure and possibly being pulled into the pump.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, if you've ever ran over a rope or a string or whatever when you're mowing grass, imagine what it would do to it when it gets sucked through a pump. So it could have
Right.
been, that alone could have been a pretty significant issue. And what I wanted to conclude on this, actually we have one more, do you have another picture of the screens there? Okay, all right. There was another picture, but must have not gotten loaded. But anyway, what I wanted to say about the screening project is the reason I wanted to show that it's just another example of the things that we continue to do in utilities, specifically we're talking about the water side here, but we continue to repair, replace, and update critical infrastructure that is important to produce what we feel is the highest quality water and safest drinking water in the area. So moving on, we'll talk. We just want to talk about a couple of hydrant issues or hydrant repairs. And yearly AFD, they go out and they perform hydrant testing in the system, and they come up with a list of hydrants that need repair or replaced. And in 2019, they found 31 hydrants that needed to be repaired or replaced. Well, that sounds like a significant number, but in the city we have 1,034 hydrants. So 31, while that's more than what we would like, it's a small amount compared to the total number of hydrants. We were able to juggle and repair 24 of these hydrants already. This is coupled with the work that we're already doing, whether it's processing new services, replacing water lines, changing out meters, all the typical works that the work that we do to repair leaks. We were able to juggle and fix these 24 hydrants. We're actually working on number 25 today, so that'll be repaired, and that leaves us with 6 to repair. Mr. Gracie, yeah, thank you. This just shows a typical installation there of a hydrant and some other stuff going on in the ditch. I just thought that was a neat photo to show that you can see the storm sewer there, and there's a tap going to it's actually an apartment complex, but oftentimes our guys are working, there's a lot more stuff there, whether it be another sewer line, electric, or gas. It just shows how it can be complex to dig in these areas. The only thing that's keeping us from doing those last 6 hydrants is we're actually just waiting on parts at this point, and we plan on having those completed by the end of this summer. So the last pic here, I just wanted to show that picture of a hydrant that's actually on Pine Tree Court, and the reason that's significant, that's the way we would dress up a hydrant, sow grass, and straw it. But that was installed on the Terrace Boulevard water line replacement. So that's just an example of what we've been doing on the water side. I mean, obviously there's so many more things we could talk about, but those are 2 highlights that we wanted to touch on. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
Again, I appreciate your time, Mayor and Commissioners. It's just something I wanted you all and the public to know. Like I said, the beat goes on, making progress and working on those to-do lists. Mayor and Commissioners, unless you have any questions, that concludes my portion.
Okay. Any questions for City Manager? Okay, next item is an acceptance and filing the resignation letter of Commissioner Pat Steen, and I personally, and I think I would speak on your all's behalf, I would like a motion to accept this with sincere regret.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And next, to exciting news. I first would like to thank those citizens who contacted commissioners or me expressing an interest in being appointed to this vacant commission seat. And some I didn't know who they were, and some I did, and they were all excellent citizens, you know, people wanting to help. And so we I think, as a commission, have arrived at, through discussions, an outstanding person in our community, a leader. Miss Bernice Henry has lived in Ashland the majority of her life, attending Ashland schools. She was a Booker T. Washington student. Her last 2 years, she transferred to the old Ashland High School on Lexington Avenue and graduated in '64. She attended ACC, where Sonny Martin got his start. They called it UK Center then, I think, didn't they, Sonny? Yeah, UK Center. My brother went there. But she finished the 2 years there and transferred to Morehead State College and graduated with a degree in elementary education. And I know she'd been in the school system with me all of my years, but I never realized she had a teaching degree. That was my mistake, not talking to her more about it. But anyway, she spent almost 30 years working in the early childhood education program. Exactly what I was referring to, Bernice, in talking about bringing kids along at the earliest point to understand differences, and that those differences are far overshadowed by alikes, and understanding diversity, that you all have got a remarkable program going, and I counted on you and in the school system and Carol Jackson weekly. I know I did, and you always delivered. She served in a Head Start program, what it's now called Early Childhood Education Program in our school system, as a community engagement coordinator. And those of you who know her and know her well, there's no one finer to get people and businesses in the community involved in whatever it is a school system wanted to do with children, not only in advancing their education, but in diversity. During her time with the school system, she did work closely with me from time to time to develop a plan for diversity education in the schools. This program included training with staff, guest speakers, as well as travel opportunities to expose students to varying cultures and raise their awareness and understanding. I don't think I ever said no to you or Carol Jackson in my whole career, and it paid unbelievable dividends. I was honored to work with her and our dear friend Carol on so many projects that we couldn't go through. I did appoint Bernice a few years ago to serve on Scope Tires board. She chairs the Ashland Human Rights Commission. She's vice president of the NAACP of Ashland. She serves with the Interagency Council. She's deeply involved in her church, New Hope Baptist, and she's an active voice of many more community programs and services. And all of them, everything that Bernice Henry's been involved in my career, and able to watch her and work closely with her, have been to make Ashland a better place to live. Bernice is a humble community advocate who would rather do than talk about it. She looks forward to making a positive difference in our city, serving on the commission. And we are going to be deeply honored to have her join our commission. And another dear friend, the Honorable Judge from Catlettsburg, who also is a long-term Ashland attorney and also a former city attorney, John Vincent. if you'd come up front, Bernice, if you'd come up front for the swearing in.
Let's open the floor for nominations and have a vote before we have the swearing in.
Okay, have a nomination for this vacancy.
Certainly. I'll nominate Bernice Henry.
Second.
Any other nominations? The only nomination we have. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. We'll have you come front and center, Bernice. And
All right, you ready, Miss Henry? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so long as you continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully execute, to the best of your ability, the office of City of Ashland Commissioner, according to law? And do you further solemnly swear or affirm that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you, being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state nor out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as a second in carrying a challenge or aided and assisted any person thus offending, so help you God? Congratulations.
I will slide for that. I wasn't sure how to spell it. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Interesting about the duel.
Yeah.
Mr. Gilmore ended up telling me that.
I've got.
Did he? Thank you.
Let's get you. How about shaking hands with her, John?
Nice save.
Thanks.
We look great with these masks on, don't we?
Welcome, Ms. Henry, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you.
If that's real uncomfortable, from time to time, you can slip it down to get a
Thank you.
good breath of air, probably. Anyone have anything to say before we start with old business?
I'd just like to congratulate Bernice. I've known Bernice for probably over 40 years. We met at the ball fields
Yes.
years and years ago, and I've been involved with the MLK March and, of course, various candidate forums with the late Carol Jackson, and we serve on the South Ashland Family Resource Center together. And I can't say she's an intelligent, articulate voice in our city, one that unites and one that you can trust. You can trust her word. And I couldn't think of a better person in the city to fill this position at this time. This is an historic moment in the city, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you, Bernice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well said.
I'm just going to echo all of that. Ms. Henry and I have served in a number of capacities on different boards and committees and such, and I agree with Commissioner Goot. At this time in our city's history, I can think of no one better that could possibly fill that seat, and I just welcome you with all sincerity.
Thank you.
Ms. Henry, it's an honor to serve with you. We are best of friends, and going back to the days of playing baseball, and it's an honor to serve with you, and I look forward to working with you on all the issues our city has. We have a lot to do. I know you're ready.
Thank you.
You're one of the most respected people I know in Ashland. You're definitely a leader. You have your own heart and your mind on things, and for all the right reasons. And I'm very proud you're here. Now to the mundane.
Yes.
But to our citizens, it's their business that we're tending to. It's so important. Council, old business, item A.
Item A, second reading and final adoption of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and approving change order number 1 between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and Bluegrass Recreation Sales and Installation, decreasing the contract amount by $1,000 and extending the contract to July 30th, 2020 for the Community Center project for the Department of Community and Economic Development."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item B.
Second reading and final adoption of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and approving change order number 3 between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and Bristle Cone Ventures 2 LLC, DBA Falcon Structures, extending the contract to July 31, 2020 regarding the Community Center project for the Department of Community and Economic Development."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item C.
Second reading and final adoption of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Salvation Army of Ashland, the subrecipient of $10,000 from the 2019 program year Community Development Block Grant CV funds."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item D.
Second reading and final adoption of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and People's Insurance Agency, LLC, to provide property and casualty insurance broker agent placement services from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 in the amount of $14,000 and authorizing payment of the same."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda.
A resolution of the City of Ashland, Kentucky adopting, authorizing, and approving the course of action presented by the city manager on the items appearing on the consent agenda for the regular special meeting of the Board of City Commissioners of June 11th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on any consent item? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. New business, item A.
First reading and second reading and final adoption of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and Tech Code, Inc. in the amount of $571,837 for the filter under drain and media replacement project at the City of Ashland Water Treatment Plant and declaring an emergency to exist to allow 2 readings of this ordinance on the same day."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And a motion to suspend the rules to.
After we
Oh.
get this vote. I really know this system down here.
I just realized
I'm
that.
here longer than you.
You forgot about voting before she was sworn in, though.
I stand to be
Got you
corrected.
on that one, right?
I stand to be corrected from time to time, but not on this one.
Okay.
Did everybody vote?
I don't, vote, let's vote. So, did you get our vote? Yes, okay, good.
Okay. Motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Final adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
There you are.
Good job.
There you are.
Well done.
Item B.
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Ashland Child Development Center, Inc., the subrecipient of $15,000 from the 2020 program year Community Development Block Grant."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Item C.
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Ashland Community Kitchen, Inc., the subrecipient of $20,000 from the 2020 program year Community Development Block Grant, CDBG."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item D.
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with the Boyd County Council of Aging, Inc., the Ashland Senior Center, the subrecipient of $20,000 from the 2020 program year Community Development Block Grant."
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item E.
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with Community Assistance Referral Service, Inc., CARES, the subrecipient of $40,000 from the 2020 Program Year Community Development Block Grant.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Item F,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with Hillcrest Bruce Mission, the subrecipient of $40,000 from the 2020 Program Year Community Development Block Grant."
So move.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Item G,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement with Shelter of Hope, Inc., the subrecipient of $20,000 from the 2020 Program Year Community Development Block Grant."
So moved.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item H,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and approving change order number 4 between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and Bristlecone Ventures 2 LLC, DBA Falcon Structures, decreasing the amount of the contract by $1,200 regarding the community center project for the Department of Community and Economic Development."
So move.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
I just wanted to say, I'm proud of our community development and all those staff that had a part in this. Everybody ought to go up and check out the community center there at 30th and Railroad Street. It was some kind of a deal to see the building taken off of 3 trucks. And I think it will show a police presence and a presence of our code enforcement up there and a nice new playground. So I'm happy with the project.
Thanks, Commissioner. I think we all agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Item I,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky adopting Ashland Assistance Housing COVID-19 Housing Choice Voucher waivers and policies for the Department of Community and Economic Development, Division of Assisted Housing," Section 8.
So move.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item J,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an amendment to the City of Ashland, Kentucky Flexible Benefit Plan as adopted by ordinance number 129, series of 2011, and previously amended by ordinance number 85, series of 2012, and ordinance number 56, series of 2015, as required by the CARES Act due to the coronavirus pandemic, reinstating coverage of eligible over-the-counter medications retroactive to January 1, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item K,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a rate stabilization agreement between the Kentucky League of Cities Insurance Services and the City of Ashland for property and liability insurance."
So move.
Second.
any discussion?
Make a comment. I missed something on the consent agenda that ties to our insurance, and I wanted to share some numbers with you all. You know, Mike Atkins has worked feverishly to bring our costs down across the board, and I just wanted to share a couple of these with you. On the old items, you saw the brokerage fee. We saved $11,000 there from 2021. In workers' comp, property and liability, respectively, from last year to this year, you saw the numbers that were in the fiscal note. But since 2017, in workers' comp, we saved $125,000 annually. In property and liability, $24,000. The grand total across those 3 categories in the past 5 years, yearly average is $174,000 saved. So it's a reflection of Mike's effort. It's a reflection of a different, a changed safety culture and an emphasis on that. You'll see safety boards when you go into the work areas, and it's all very positive. It's one bite at a time, but cumulatively, it is really a good news story for our city, the entire workforce, and what they've done. I just
Great.
wanted to share that.
Great. With that in mind, maybe maybe our next regular meeting, we can have some figures on the job that Council Wheeler has been doing for us on delinquencies.
Absolutely.
I think the taxpayers should know those figures, and he's doing an outstanding job. We're fortunate to have him, and let's get that on the public record.
Outstanding. I agree, Mayor.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item L,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing the mayor to execute a contract between the City of Ashland and Cintas Corporation for the rental of work uniforms for a period of 3 years for the Departments of Public Services, Engineering, Utilities, Parks and Recreation, and Code Enforcement in the City of Ashland.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Item M,
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky, amending ordinance number 107, series of 2015 regarding the discharge of a toy gun within the City of Ashland to allow an exception for the City of Ashland certified animal control officer.
So moved.
Second.
Yes, that was.
yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you,
This is
Commissioner.
related, M and N are both related, and based upon information we received from the State Department of Wildlife, it relates primarily to some wild animals that there's concerns about rabies, that in the, previously we would have transported rather than euthanized, and because of the rabies concerns, we are going to be required to euthanize those animals. And the prohibitions against discharge, what's defined as a toy gun would include air-propelled, like a dart gun would come within that
Okay.
definition. And then also on the next item, you're going to see an item N. Nobody's allowed to discharge a handgun in the city except police officers in to discharge their duties. It would also allow the animal control officer to do that within the scope of his duties. And again, this is, nobody's going to be shooting your dogs and cats and so on. This is with respect to certain wild animal species that there is a potential rabies crisis, and we received direction that we were in violation of regulations promulgated in Frankfurt if we trapped and transported a raccoon or a possum rather than euthanizing them on the spot. So that's the response to that direction from Frankfurt.
okay, thanks.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
It was a little confusing, I know, to us.
It is. You first
The
look, you're not-
animal control officer doesn't carry a toy gun, so.
I also could ask at this time, just since it is related, I would like to see a status report on month, maybe by month, in the past 12 months, looking at the actual captures by animal control, all the services provided, not just how many phone calls, but actually how many animals.
We've got that information. I can provide that, Commissioner. And I did want to add one thing. Our animal control officer has not only met the minimum requirements for weapon safety training, but he's also taken a couple extra courses above and beyond. Chief has been integral in these conversations with this, the safety concern for the radar's vectoring.
I think he does a wonderful job. He's got his hands full with all the wild animals that we have here. You know, I have them in my yard and around my house, deer and raccoon and possums and so forth. Along with the dogs and cats, I think he does an excellent job.
And just for the record, say this about every 3 or 4 years. Not that I haven't been here a lot, but animal control is the county, under statute, is a county's responsibility, not the city. And I don't know how many years ago, maybe 50, maybe longer, the city of Ashland, the chief might know, the city of Ashland decided to, in addition to the county animal services, we would do our own to give an extra level of that service to our citizens, our taxpayers. But basically, it is an expense that we take on because we do want to provide that extra level, but it isn't one that we have to do. But I will say, in working with Judge Cheney and other judges in the past, they understand that. They know that responsibility and appreciate the fact that we're trying to do some of it. They stand ready to do whatever it is they need to do to help us. So I want to make sure we're all Boyd Countyans. They know the Judge Cheney is highly responsible for bringing that up a lot to me, and I bring it up to him a whole lot myself, but he's a great guy to work with. But they understand the responsibility. I like to make our citizens aware that sometimes response time may not be as great, but we're, it's kind of an adaptation we do to help the best we can. And if some of this, it seems like some of you all, and I have too, have received calls this late spring and into the summer, more and more raccoon sightings and calls and getting in garbage and being on porches and all that. and I'm an animal lover, but, you know, they are probably one of the primary ones that carry rabies, so they could be quite critically injurious to our residents. So please let us know, you know, if there being a problem, as they have been. But now with these ordinances here, they're going to allow us to be a little more expeditious in dealing with the wild animals that we have not legally been able to do in the past. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Item M.
First reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to the City of Ashland, Kentucky amending Ordinance Number 100, Series of 1994, which prohibited the discharge of a firearm within the City of Ashland and provided for certain exceptions, to allow an exception for the City of Ashland Certified Animal Control Officer."
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any other old business, new business? We'd like to set a special meeting for some budgetary reasons next Thursday, the 18th, at noon. And do manager, council, can we adjourn or need to recess?
No, you can adjourn, and there'll be a special call letter that'll go out to the media and to all required recipients, and
Okay.
you'll all be served with that. But it'll be, as you say, for next Thursday at
Okay.
noon, and you'll all receive formal notice.
Okay, great. So a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
and we'll adjourn this meeting in honor of our new commissioner, Commissioner Henry.
Amen.
We are adjourned.